Welcome to the BOSCHCAST with James Boschman and Denise Young, where we talk about Manitoba real estate and everything else that's on our minds.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's James.
And Denise.
And we want to do our local business shout-outs before we get to the podcast. So for me, I have two local business shout-outs. My first one is Alex Towing. And the reason why I'm talking about Alex Towing is because my car broke down, and Alex Towing is a towing outfit out of West St. Paul, and very close to where I live. And on shortly after Christmas, they were able to tow my vehicle to the shop within hours of contacting them.
Awesome.
Their service was unreal. They were very, I don't want to say cheap, but they were reasonably priced. Super friendly, and yeah, they did a great job towing my vehicle. So if you ever need a tow job and you don't have CAA or anything, highly recommend Alex Towing. And then the follow-up local business shout out to that is Elmwood Auto Service. And I've been taking my vehicle there for a little while now. And Elmwood Auto Service has been phenomenal. They're, it's under, I think, relatively new ownership over the last few years, and they've really done a great job. They have a few service bays. They're a full service shop, auto mechanic shop. They will service any make and model of vehicle, and they're just like super friendly and, again, reasonably priced. I've had quotes on my vehicle to get some, fairly large items fixed at different shops, and Elmwood has always come in under, and I've been like really happy with the service. I've got a very high mileage vehicle, and they take really good care of it. Yeah, and they're super communicative. Like they're always calling you to give you updates on your car, and yeah, just can't say enough good things about them. So anybody looking for a great auto mechanic in the city, Elmwood Auto, super great. So those are my two local business shout outs.
That's awesome. Mine is the Butter Tart Lady. I stopped baking years ago, and I feel like that if I'm going to treat myself to the sweet treats at Christmas, I want them to be good quality, because then I'm satisfied and I don't eat like as many as I may have in the past. Mm-hmm. So if you get yourself a good butter tart, one is enough. And the Butter Tart Ladies definitely fill that need.
That's awesome.
And so what I love about them also is if you pre-order, she'll do like no sugar. My parents are diabetic, as am I. So having the no sugar, I mean, there's still plenty of sugar and raisins and stuff like that, but yeah. It reduces the amount of sugar that I'm taking to their house and stuff like that. But yeah, so having that, and she does all kinds of things other than butter tarts. So it's not just the butter tarts, but yeah, having when I asked my stepmom what she wanted for dessert this year, and she said butter tarts with raisins, I knew I was going to the Butter Tart Lady.
Nice. Cool. Yeah. That's awesome. Right on. Where is she? Is her business like online? Can you order?
You can order online.
Social media?
She's out of Gimli, but she does have a location on Ness. And this year she had some pop-ups at the Forks and Kildonan Place.
Cool. Well, that ends our local business shout-outs.
Awesome.
On to the podcast.
And we're live.
Hello.
It's been a while since we've done one of these.
Yes, it sure has been. I won't even try to guess when.
Yeah. So it's the end of 2024, and the date of this recording, it's December 31st, and so we're leaving 2024, and we're about to embark on a 2025. And one of my New Year's resolutions is I want to make this podcast a priority in 2025. So part of that is like getting it set up on all the streaming platforms. I'm actively looking into different like platforms on how we can post it on Spotify and Apple and all that kind of stuff. So that is definitely coming. And that is, I was thinking about this, like 2024 and the holidays, especially like leading up to New Year's, is always so overwhelming and so stressful between like family stuff and friends and Christmas gatherings and everything. And honestly, New Year's kind of snuck up on me. I don't know how it was for you. But
yeah, I've just been so busy. I haven't had like the time I normally take to reflect on like the last year and stuff like that.
I know.
And I think I'll be spending the first week of January doing that.
Yeah. So it kind of feels like going into 2025, like almost like I'm hitting a wall, it's like I haven't really thought about it, and it didn't really click until yesterday for me for some reason. I think it's just been so chaotic and busy. But yeah, I'm optimistic for 2025. I don't know about you, but I feel like 2024 was just such a like strange year in so many ways, so much uncertainty, and I feel personally, but also anecdotally, just talking to people, clients, whether that's like home builders or people that are looking to buy or looking to sell potentially, people that have been on the fence in 2025. I feel like there's something in the air now that's, a feeling of certainty almost. And I'm optimistic that 2025 is going to be a banner year for real estate and for life. And while there's still uncertainty, with some of the stuff coming out of the States with like the tariffs and all that kind of stuff, I feel like, the interest rates were the biggest driving factor for so many people.
For so many,
and the deciding factor to whether or not to buy or sell or whatever, downsize, upsize. And that is changing. Like interest rates have come down pretty significantly, and they will undoubtedly continue to drop the rates. And that will only provide stimulus in the economy. And I know that some of the other markets in Canada are suffering with slow real estate sales and stuff like that. Right. Toronto and Vancouver, which is pretty normal. Our market here has been clicking along.
Yeah, like we have such a lack of inventory, so there's not enough supply for the demand.
Yeah. And it was strange leading up to Christmas. I personally wasn't involved in any multiple offer situations, bidding wars, but
I heard of a lot of them.
Yeah, like I'm sure you and I both know quite a few people that were caught up in them, and houses still selling for 60, 80, 100K over list price.
Yeah.
And that, like you said, that is a sign of significantly low inventory.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, we'll probably get to that in a bit in the podcast, but, and like, not to put you on the spot or anything, but do you have any 2025 New Year's, like goals or resolutions that, Could be real estate related, but also personally.
I'm still working on, deciding what I want my goals to actually be, but I have started to think about things, and one of them is doing like double what I did this year for helping people into new homes.
Yeah.
And so I want to do double what I did last year, because I feel like this year, like I had a good year, but I feel like because of the uncertainty, I had a lot of disappointments in that, rural houses were having a hard time selling, and I, would have likely have helped more people move if we could have gotten their houses moved by the time the house they wanted sold or something like that, right? Like there was so many deadlines, and I think that's going to like go into the topic that we're going to be talking about shortly of should I buy before I sell? Because I feel like that was a big part of my disappointments last year. Was it's a tough decision. Do I buy before I sell, or do I sell and then hope that the house I want comes on the market, right? Like, so, those are challenges that we navigate, and sometimes, aren't the right decision.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Like 2023 was still such a hot market, in the sense like interest rates were still, like, even though they were going up, a lot of people were in the market trying to beat the next rate hike. And so speaking of rural properties, like a lot of the towns and stuff that we sell in outside of the city, the market was relatively hot because people were still having a really hard time getting into something in Winnipeg. They would be caught up in a bidding war. And then you only go through that so many times before you feel pressure to get out of the place that you're currently in and into something else, or just like defeated in the sense like I just can't see myself paying $100,000 over list price to get a house in the area that I want. So, with more and more people working from home and internet in the rural communities getting better and better, I feel like more and more people were looking to purchase outside of the city and, kind of get what they wanted, the house that they wanted, maybe a better house than they would otherwise get for a price in Winnipeg, similar price in Winnipeg. And so the market was moving, like things were clicking in the smaller towns and stuff like that. But then 2024 hit, and there was a huge contraction where a lot of those people that would have otherwise, looked outside of the city were kind of contracted back to looking in Winnipeg, because the market had slowed down. It had stabilized and balanced out a little bit more. There was generally a little bit more inventory than there was. There were still bidding wars, but less bidding wars. And so, people were able to kind of find what they wanted closer to the city. And alternatively, a lot of people just decided to stay put until the wave of uncertainty kind of got better, interest rates came down and things, were a little bit brighter at the end of the tunnel,
I think the other thing that made people stay put longer than they might have is they renewed their mortgage in 2020, 2021 or bought in those years and had such a low interest rate. So like to move and to even get a blended rate would be so much higher. Right. So it kept people still, which kept our inventory, stagnant.
Yeah. So, leading into 2025 now, I'm getting a sense, and again, this is anecdotal based on the last couple weeks. The phone for me has been ringing more on inventory, that's been otherwise sitting. And it seems like there is an optimism again.
Right.
And it seems like a lot of those people who sat on the fence in 2024 are now re-entering the market again. they're getting their pre-approvals again. Maybe
Right.
they had a pre-approval previously and they got either outbid or frustrated with interest rates, or just, so they stayed put, and then their pre-approval time kind of lapsed, and then they have to get a reapproval, right?
Right.
And I feel like there's a lot of those people that are going to be entering the market again. And then couple that with the new wave of buyers that
Right.
have no preconception of what we went through. They're getting their pre-approvals for the first time. They're getting rates at like 4.39 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
4.49, and they're like, oh, well, this is great. I mean, yeah, this must be normal,
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. Undoubtedly, if optimism increases generally in the market, people will have more confidence to sell.
Right.
So I think that with an increase in demand will also be joined by an increase in supply.
I hope so.
So I think there will be, but
I hope so. And I agree that it should happen, because people are more like, a lot of people are going to have to renew their mortgages this year. So they're not going to be like, oh, let's wait until, we don't want to lose our good interest rate. So that's going to be a factor. They're going to have to renew this year anyway, or the next.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be a lot of just transacting. I think there's going to be a lot of activity in the new year. And I mean, like, weather-wise, maybe the phone calls that I had, around Christmas or pre-Christmas, was because it was so freaking warm outside.
It's been so warm. I have noticed my phone has definitely, like, normally I can have this week off without too many distractions, and no, it's been a challenge.
Looking at the weather, though, I mean, it is supposed to get colder.
It's supposed to get cold.
But yeah, I just think that there's a lot more optimism right now than there was, and that may lead to an influx of new buyers. And what's going to be interesting to see is if the supply can keep up with that demand in our market. And if it can't, like, if there's more demand, undoubtedly that demand will spill over into the surrounding areas. And so a lot of the houses, I'm going to pick on Niverville.
Yeah.
Because
Niverville had a big lull last year.
Yeah, but like, if you look at 2022, 2023, the market was ripping in Niverville, because people were frustrated. They couldn't get what they wanted in Winnipeg, or like close to Winnipeg. So they got pushed further and further out. And Niverville is a self-sustaining community. It has everything you need. You don't really need to leave. If the highway is closed because of bad weather, at least you're not going to be stuck. So it's but 2024 saw a huge contraction and a rise in inventory. A lot of people wanting to sell, and resulting in too many houses for sale at the same time, and houses taking longer to sell or not selling for the prices that people were hoping.
Right.
But that may change again. And I think it will. And
I think it will too. I've lived in Niverville long enough now. Like, I've seen, this is our second lull since I lived here 10 years ago, right? Like, and the last time there was a lull, it was about, I don't know, not even 18 months. It was over a year, but less than 18 months. Right. Mm-hmm. And stuff just like sat, and, some builders even went out of business. Right. Like, it was so bad. That was like 2015, 16. Right. Like, and it wasn't just Niverville. It was like, even Oakbank saw it.
Yes.
We didn't really see it in Oakbank, but we saw it in lots of towns back then. And I see it, it seems to be fitting the same pattern this time. Yeah. I feel like we're almost out of it. So I feel like it's been shorter. There was definitely a pickup in the fall.
Yeah.
I think as inventory was really short in Winnipeg, so I think we did see a little push out to the country in the fall, but I do feel like it's going to pick up, because I feel like, yes, there is a big demand, and so far we haven't seen the supply increase. Niverville does a good job of, they have like everything here, right? And they're very forward thinking. So like if you're paying attention to what the town has planned and what's coming down the road and stuff like that, like there's going to be, it's not just small town. I mean, it is still small town living, but it's not just about small town living. It's about forward growth, right?
Yeah.
Like they're always talking about what's next, what's next, what's next.
Yeah, no, I'm very optimistic, and I'm very excited at the potential of 2025. And so maybe we should talk about, I know right now interest rates are kind of sitting at, 4.39 or 4.49 on a 5-year fixed rate. Ironically, this may be the time where it's a good idea, if you're thinking about purchasing or you're getting a pre-approval, to not necessarily lock in on a 5-year fixed rate. Maybe look at a shorter term, or maybe look at a variable rate. The variable rate, when it makes sense, especially on a certain type of variable rate mortgage, where you can easily lock into a fixed rate or switch to a fixed rate without a penalty. When the market is trending that the interest rates are undoubtedly going to keep coming down, a variable rate could be a good way to ride that to, a level of interest rate that you're comfortable locking in at. And, at least the mortgage broker that I talk to is suggesting that. But I mean, if somebody needs certainty in their life, then they can always opt for a fixed rate. But generally, the lower the term of the fixed rate, the higher the interest rate. And, whereas a 5-year, you might get something like I mentioned in the low to mid 4s. If the Bank of Canada continues to drop rates, which they likely will, it will stimulate the economy, but we may be sitting at a fixed rate with a 3 in front of it by, spring of 2025. What the US decides to do with tariffs and all that kind of stuff could have an impact on that, but who knows? I know all the premiers and everybody in Canada are scrambling right now like chickens with their heads cut off, trying to figure out what to do about these potential incoming tariffs.
Yes.
But I don't know. I think a lot of that rhetoric is trolling, and I think it's designed to start the negotiation on trade agreements and stuff like that. I don't think that it's going to have a significant impact as much as people think. The one thing that I have heard is, if tariffs are introduced from the US to Canada, it will actually help with building materials. So building material prices may come down, which, will have a positive impact on especially with new homes and, cost of construction and stuff like that. But yeah, so that's also, that's definitely uncertainty, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. But I wouldn't, if I was in the market, if I was looking to build or buy something, I wouldn't use the rhetoric coming out of the States as it pertains to tariffs and stuff like that as as a, an indicator or a guide of whether or not to purchase or sell real estate right now.
Right.
Because I don't think it's going to have an impact, like people say, especially on our local market here. So, but yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit. So navigating 2025, we should talk about our topic of, should you buy first? If you have a house, if you're currently owning a property, should you buy a home first, or, and write it subject to the sale? Or should you sell your home first and then start shopping for something? So what are kind of your thoughts on that?
I know everyone's ideal is that they can write that condition subject to the sale of our house. But I think, the heartbreaking part of that is it's never that cut and dry. No one's going to wait forever for you to sell your house. No one's going to wait a week for you to sell your house, never mind forever. So they're going to have a time clause on there. And that time clause, like, that'll break your heart, right?
Yeah.
Like it creates disappointment over and over. And it makes the process so much harder. So I know it sounds like it's more work to sell your house, move into a rental or somewhere, and then buy a house, but it really alleviates so much stress and so much heartbreak. And also, exactly how much money you have to spend,
Exactly.
Right? So even though it sounds like, the harder thing, it actually makes so many things easier, right?
Yeah.
You're paying a mover twice.
Yeah, you're paying a mover twice. Maybe,
but you're buying yourself ease and like comfort in knowing exactly what you can spend.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I always say that, if people ask me, how should we do this? We own a house, we really need to upsize, or we really need to downsize or relocate, whatever the case may be for selling and buying. I always say it depends.
Yeah, it does depend.
Yeah. It depends on the house that you currently have. So number one, we have to make sure that house is going to be sellable in any market.
Right.
You're
in the hottest area in a really nice house that's in good shape, that no matter what happens, it's going to sell. For the amount that you need.
Yeah.
Right.
So we need to look at the property. We need to advise on any repairs that you may need to do prior to selling it, or kind of getting it ready for sale, having that discussion.
Right.
And then part of that strategy is also figuring out what your current mortgage looks like. And so
what your flexibility is with your finances.
Yeah. And that's, you as the seller, having a conversation with your lender. If you're not happy with your existing mortgage and that it may be coming up for renewal, then maybe it's worth talking to somebody else. And we have experts that can help with that. And just trying to figure out, if you were to sell and then purchase something, if you had to sell and then you had to close out your existing mortgage and maybe move into a rental for a certain amount of time, or you sell and then, you have to figure out how transferable your mortgage is, what the terms of your mortgage are, if there's any penalties associated with closing out your existing mortgage. So that's a conversation you need to have with your lender, with your bank or your credit union or your mortgage broker. And then from there, we typically will advise what the best strategy is. The biggest factor, I would say, determining factor, is as important as it is to figure out, you know, how to sell your house and how much it's going to sell for. There's also the uncertainty of the market for the home that you're looking for. So that's where it depends again. You know, it's like, is the area that you're looking in going to be, you know, a ridiculously hot market? Is there no inventory? Is it an area where a house that you're looking for comes on the market and sells in a week for multiple offers?
Right.
You know, or is it in a rural area where maybe things don't move that quickly and you can write subject to the sale? So it really depends on so many factors. But I agree with you. If, like, I've done this before, I know you've done this before, we've seen our clients go through similar things. You know, sometimes in the past, I will advise that a client sells first. You know, I know, like you said, it's difficult to put your stuff in storage or move in with mom and dad or move into a short-term rental or like a month-to-month rental, or, you know, all of that can be very stressful, especially if you have a family. But I have advised clients to do that. And then they've said, well, we just can't do that, you know? And it's not that they can't, it's just they choose not to because it's tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we proceed to write offers on houses that are subject to the sale of their existing house. And either they don't get accepted because we're competing with an offer that doesn't have that condition, or they accept the offer, but another offer comes in, they invoke the time clause, and then we lose it. So you could potentially spend money on doing inspections and, you know, going through the motions of falling in love with the property, getting all your financing in order, and all we have to do is sell the house, and then another offer comes in and they swoop it from you. And now you're back to the drawing board again, right? Yeah. And so I agree with you. I think that the ideal situation is to sell so that you know exactly what you're working with at the end of the day. And the great thing about selling first is that you can dictate the possession date to the new buyer of your home. So if you give yourself a reasonable amount of time to sell and then look for something, you may not actually need to be homeless, quote unquote, or find something else if you line it up correctly. But again, that doesn't always happen either.
It also depends on how flexible you are with where you want to buy. Like, you know, when you only want one neighborhood, it might take longer to find something.
Right. So it's the
good part about like selling first and then buying. I mean, there's so many good parts, but the other thing is once you've sold, it's easier for me to knock on doors and say, hey, I do have someone and this is what they need, you know, and, you know, like to find that buyer that's not on the market. I mean, that seller that's not on the market is so much easier when you can say that the house is already sold. We're ready. They're ready to go.
Writing a cleaner offer.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas like you, it's so much harder to find that off-market buyer or seller when, you know, they still have to get their house ready for sale and put it on the market and all that stuff, right? Like you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot asking for that, right?
I 100% agree. Yeah. So it's the short answer is, you know, the short answer to the question of should I buy first or sell first is it depends.
It depends, yes.
But in a perfect world, selling first can alleviate so much unknown and so many headaches. And it can provide more certainty for you and your family. You know, and then you can really focus on like shopping for what you actually want.
Exactly.
Because another thing that I find is that people put a lot of pressure on themselves, and they may end up settling for something that they don't necessarily like, you know, and they're not necessarily happy with.
Right.
So
because they're trying to meet that timeline.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, plan to sell first, then buy, set a later possession date on the sale of your home. You can always make that possession. Yeah, you can always make that possession date sooner by mutual agreement. You can have a conversation with the potential purchasers and, you know, see if push comes to shove, could they potentially bump up possession? It's never a guarantee, but, you know, that's a conversation worth having. And then have a backup plan, you know, so that you're not homeless.
Right.
But I've gone through that situation. You've probably gone through that situation.
Yes.
I've seen clients like countless times go through that. And
we've had successes on both avenues, but we've also had failures.
And the reason why I'm suggesting this, I think the sell first and then buy, is because we're so confident that the market in 2025 is going to heat up, and it is going to get harder for someone to write that subject to sale condition.
Absolutely. You know? You're going to have to write with the least amount of conditions in order to get the house.
Yeah. But yeah. So that, I guess that pretty much sums up the buy first, sell first topic. But yeah, you know, from the Boschman team to anybody that's listening, watching, we wish you guys a happy new year, and look forward to 2020, successful 2025. And if anybody has any real estate questions, if you need help selling, buying, you need an evaluation done on your home to figure out, you know, kind of where you land with price, and, you know, giving you some ideas on what you can do to get your house ready for sale, we would be more than happy to provide that help and service. And again, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe, and we look forward to pumping out a lot more content in 2025. So
awesome.
Catch you guys, as they say, see you next year.
See you next year.